share this with all of our friends who aren't here. Okay. All right, I'm going to share my screen and go ahead and get started. Okay, well, welcome everyone to our April 2025 version of Symbiota Support Group. Super excited today because we get to share with you what's latest and greatest in Symbiota portals, or at least what will be latest and greatest soon, depending on what portal you're currently in. Just a couple of announcements first. So we have received feedback from multiple people that are like kind of on the fence about the search form that was added in 3.1. The new search form is the one that has all of those accordions, so the things you hit the button and then you get drop down options. And we want that form to be the form moving forward, so we're not supporting two versions of the same page at the same time. And so we're going to try to get that as user-friendly as possible. So to do that, we're going to form a focus group of you all. Whoever's interested can join and kind of figure out like what are the things that we could improve on this forums to make it the most user-friendly for you all. So I'm going to put this link. Oh no, Lindsay already put this link in the chat. That's the interest form if you want to be part of this focus group. We would love to have you. We're going to schedule a specific time to meet, and then hopefully anyone who has expressed interest will be able to join us with that. If not, we can record the meeting and you can weigh in asynchronously as well. So that's not your only chance. That's just a nice way to have a conversation about it. And the developers actually want to join that group too, so that we can, they can bounce ideas off of you. You can bounce ideas off of them. So it'll be a fun group. Another announcement is at the Spinach 2025 meetings. That's the Society of the Preservation of Natural History Collections meeting is happening at the University of Kansas in late May. And we are hosting a Symbiota workshop, which happens the Saturday of the conference. So like most of the talks are on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday is when all the workshops are. So mark your calendars if you're going to be there. If you don't know if you're going to be there, take a look at their website, see if you might be interested. Kind of a more accessible location this year. Last year it was in Japan. So now you can just take maybe 2 flights, not 3. And then, of course, botany is coming up too for anyone who is working in a botanical portal. We will be there. Lindsay and I will be there, and I believe Jen Yost will also be there. So you can talk to one of us about your portal related questions, excitements, what have you. We'll probably be giving a presentation about what's latest and greatest in Symbiota, but you guys are seeing the breaking news right now. And that's in Palm Springs at the end of July. Another less of an announcement, more of just kind of an FYI, is that I've asked Matthew Meshulam to be here today to introduce himself and just so that you get to kind of know some of the more people in the Symbiota community. So Matthew, go ahead.
Hello. As Katie said, my name is Matthew Meshulam. I am a software engineer at the University of Minnesota. I am helping the folks at the Bell Museum maintain the Bell Atlas portal, which houses collections at the Bell Museum, which is Minnesota's Natural History Museum, as well as many other institutions around the state of Minnesota, consisting mainly of plants, but other kingdoms as well, and we'll be expanding into doing a big insect push over the next couple of years. So I'm definitely more on the technology side, still like learning a lot of the biodiversity terminology, but I'm very excited to be working on this project and getting to contribute to technology that helps all of you.
Thanks a lot, Matthew. So we're excited that there are Symbiota developers who aren't just with the Symbiota Support Hub because it's an open source software, and we really appreciate all your work. Matthew updated the Bell Atlas to 3.1, which that's a big accomplishment because you got to do a lot of code changes and a lot of schema changes and all these things. So they have kind of the latest and greatest code. Sorry, now we're going to make you do 3.2, but this one should be easier.
Yep, it's fresh in my memory. I think this one will be a bit
You're like,
easier.
got it, no problem. Well, thanks again. There's also another developer I wanted to introduce you to at some point, Eric Samuelson, who's at the Oregon Flora project. Oregon Flora uses Symbiota as well, but he couldn't make it today. So I'm just excited to have more members of the community tuning in. And I see Mark Fisher joined our meeting too. Mark is one of our Symbiota Support Hub developers, so they're around. All right, let's pop back in to talking about Symbiota 3.2. Okay, so similar to our presentation about 3.1, we are going to just briefly talk about what a code release is, and then talk about this specific code release of Symbiota 3.2, and then talk to you about how you can give us feedback and learn more about the new features in 3.2. So first of all, just some basics. What is a code release? So you might recall that Symbiota is one central code, and that code is what makes the portals run, basically. And that code is developed in one central location, we'll call it. It's called a repository of that code. And that code then has different versions, or not versions, it has different instances that underlie the different portals. So we have the CCH2 portal is one instance of the Symbiota code. SciNet is another instance, etc. But all of these are drawing ultimately from this central code base. And the advantage of this is that you're developing one code base for a bunch of different users. So anything that one community funds over here can trickle back to help the folks at other code bases and other portals. So I'll be explaining along the way who was responsible or who funded the certain developments, because you can see, oh, I see that the fact that this one institution had a grant is actually helping all of us. And you can think about that moving forward about like, hey, I could write that into my broader impacts as like, this is the thing that's going to help not just my portal, but a bigger, broader community of all the Symbiota users. So nice context to have in mind. So a code release happens when, so Symbiota developers constantly fixing bugs, but new tools, they require a lot of testing. And so we test them as kind of a batch and then release that code as, hey, this is a tested amount of features and bug fixes that can be used and deployed into portals safely in the future. So a code release is an official change to the main code, like the main static, like this is what Symbiota is. We get a bunch of those changes all together and then release what's called a code release. So one caveat to this is that even though we may say that, hey, we released a new code, that's like the central location has been updated. That doesn't mean that everybody's instance of the code has been updated to that version. So your portal may not see Symbiota 3.2 for another few months, depending on your portal. So if you are in a portal that is supported by the Symbiota Support Hub, we're hoping to get all those done in the next couple of months. But if you're with a different, or if it's hosted somewhere else, then that might take a little bit more time or a little less time, depending on how quickly they're doing those updates. So how do you tell what version of the code your portal is running? Well, there's a key little trick, actually. If you just go to whatever portal you're working in and you go to the sitemap and you scroll all the way down, there are these little tags or widgets, and this will tell you what version of the code you're in right here where it says Symbiota 3.2.1. The additional little point is we have had a hot fix, which is like a couple of bugs got fixed, but it wasn't like a major release. So that's how you can figure out what version your portal is using, whether it's been updated or not. All right, so let's actually talk about what these changes are in Symbiota 3.2. One of the big ones you're going to see probably most immediately is that we now have support for audio files. So this was developed because of the Academy of Natural Sciences of Drexel University. We had a collaborator there who I think is also in the audience who helped us get the funds to develop this. Thanks, Aiden. And this is allowing bird songs or insect songs or frog calls or anything that might actually be evidence of an occurrence that is an audio file to be attached to records. Before you ask, no, video is not supported yet, but that's like on the horizon, we hope. Still need some funding for that, but that would be cool. So these can now be uploaded individually in a 3.2 portal. We don't have any batch uploading tools yet. You could do a batch upload of links to audio files, but you can't batch host a bunch of audio files quite yet with the Symbiota Support Hub. If you think that you're going to want to do that, please just contact us and we can figure out some workflow. But because they're a little bit bigger often than images, I'm not sure if that's completely true. Because they might be bigger than images, then we might need to make sure that we have a hosting agreement in place. So what's this going to look like? What you'll see, first of all, is that there's a pretty big change to how some things are worded in the portal. And that's because everything that once said images will probably have a change that now it says media, because that more accurately reflects what those tools are linking to, because they are linking potentially to images and to audio recordings. So that means that in your homepage, you'll likely see media in the menu. And then also when you're looking at a specific occurrence record, the tab will say media, not images. So just kind of make that switch in your brain once you see the 3.2 portal in 3.2 code in your portal, because you'll say, okay, click the media tab. Now I'm going to add a media record, just so people don't get confused. But overall, most things are going to function the same. It just looks really cool when you add a media file, because then there's a media player and you can just hit play and then whatever audio is there will play. So that's handy. Oh, and I think Aiden shared one in the chat. Let's look at it together. Nice. So that's what the audio file will look like. You can play it right here. And then they also have some cool waveforms and spectrograms and cassette tapes. Frank notes that there are portals of organisms that make no noise. Yes, which is probably like occurrence level. That's probably the majority, but media is still an appropriate word to apply to images too. So that is why we chose that word. Okay, another feature, thanks to funding from the USDA ARS, or Agricultural Research Service, is the ability to search records on their associations. So an association, just to orient you, is when you go up to a record and you go to linked resources. We've talked a lot about this, as these are extended specimen capabilities. You can add an association here, and this association can be a link between a host and a parasite, or records that ecologically occur with one another, or records that reference one another. And so those associations become part of the data records. And now if I go to the search form, you have the ability to search on those associations. So you can find things that have a host of whatever taxon you want to enter in there. There's a very important caveat here is that that data has to exist in the portal for you to search it. So there's going to be, you might be like, what do you mean? Like, none of these mistletoes have hosts. Of course, mistletoes have hosts. Well, it's because those formal relationships in the database have not necessarily been populated yet. So this gives us the ability to build those really rich connections, but those connections may not have been built in all portals yet. If you're interested in kind of doing this in bulk, let us know. You might remember that in 3.2 we added, or sorry, 3.1 we added the ability to bulk add these associations. And if you need any help with that, we're happy to help. But once people have those associations, it's kind of important that they can search for them too. So that's what we have here. The USDA has a collection called the entomopathogenic fungi collection. So it's fungi that grow on insects. And so for almost every record, they had a host parasite, well, host pathogen relationship. And so they needed to be able to search, hey, if you need to know what can be found on this particular species, then you should be able to do that search. So that's what you can do with this search if you have that part of the database populated. Also, thanks to USDA funding, this one through the U.S. National Arboretum, there is better support for cultivars and trade names in the taxonomy tables. And in the process of adding this additional support, we were also able to make improvements to the whole kind of scientific name editing interfaces, and they're quite slick now. Thanks a lot, Mark and team. And let me show you what this looks like. And by supporting cultivar and trade names, I do not mean that cultivars and trade names are automatically added to the database in any way. I mean that there are fields now where you can put taxa that are cultivars and or trade names, or have cultivars and or trade names. If your portal decides that there is no such things as cultivar or trade names in our database, that's totally fine. You're not really going to see a difference. But if you do have a bunch of cultivated or trade name plants, for example, I think that's mostly what you're going to use, you could put them in the taxonomic thesaurus, which then allows them to be better searched by the public interfaces. So then if someone has a taxon name that is genus, specific epithet, cultivar, then they can continue to search for just the genus, and even that species or that cultivar will show up in the search results. Okay, so most folks are probably not going to interact with the taxon entry tools just on a daily basis because you need to have taxon editor permissions to do this. But I will show you what it looks like. If I go to add a new taxon, now there is this quick parser tool. So that way you could just go look at a scientific name, get it from some reference. You could take the whole name, put it in the quick parser, and it's going to try to parse it out for you. It won't always do it perfectly, but even if it has like varieties and sometimes other things, it will try to find the taxon rank for you, the genus name, the specific epithet. It will do a search against the database saying, does this name already exist? And then if it does, it'll say, sorry, you can't save that name. But now you can see that like if I'm adding a family, it no longer says unit name 1, unit name 2, unit name 3, which was a bit confusing. Now it will give you little fields for genus, specific epithet, and for specific epithet. So Again, most of you probably won't interact with this, but if you are a taxon editor, then you can look forward to seeing these changes that have made it hopefully a little bit more intuitive. All right. As part of the Big B Thematic Collections Network, they manage the B Library portal. Then they have helped us develop the ability to download image tags in Darwin Core archives. So what does that look like? When you have an image, you might remember that you have the ability to search for certain tags. So here's a bunch of examples of wood cross sections, for example. But if you did a download of records, let's just do, I guess I should probably find ones that have tags in them. All right, so here's a cool acacia. And let's just do a download of this particular record. So I'm going to do just a Darwin Core record download here. I always recommend that people use UTF-8 as your encoding, just kind of a little FYI. If you go into the multimedia file, which is the Darwin Core extension file that holds all of your images, and now it will hold all of your audio records if you have links to those. There is a field called tag now, and this will have the tag that has been applied to that image. So now you can do a download and be able to filter based on like, oh, this is a cross section. I just want to get all the cross section URLs, or I just want to get all of the dorsal view URLs if you're dealing with insects or vertebrates or something. So that means that you'll be able to more easily download, share, and view those images. Again, the images don't get downloaded as part of the Darwin Core archive. They get downloaded as a listing. So you'd be able to access the URLs to all those images, but you can more closely care for, download those records, those images. And then I think I just have two more things. We have improved the ability to upload identifiers that are mapped to other catalog numbers. And this one's a little bit esoteric to describe, but basically all I want to tell you is if you want to upload multiple other catalog numbers, and remember that other catalog numbers are now in this little mini table called tag name and additional identifier value. If you want multiple of those to show up, and even if you want them to have a tag name so that like has a label, hey, this is the accession number, this is the NPS number, you can do that very easily through a normal full text file upload now. And the way you want to format it is have your catalog number as normal. And then if you want multiple other catalog numbers or additional identifiers, they need to be tag name, colon, identifier value. Semicolon, if you want a second one, tag name, colon, identifier. So if I imported this field into the other catalog numbers field in my database, then what it would look like is, well, how do I do this next to it? Okay. I would have accession number 8293234, and then on the next line it would say NPS accession number, and then ALP 85321 would be here. And you could have like 10 other catalog numbers if you want, as long as you separate them neatly with those semicolons. and then you put the tag names with just a colon. If you don't have a tag name, you don't need any specific label, you just want it to throw into that field, then you just don't put anything at the beginning. You just say, here's my number. Or if I said accession number, colon, blah, 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 semicolon, 53234, then that would show up just on another line, but without a tag name. And those load nicely into the other catalog numbers table, which is easily searchable through the front-end interfaces and through the search form. All right, one more, and then I'll open it up for questions. We now also have improved ability to download those additional identifiers. So previously, you would put them in like this, and then you would get them out like this. There was no way to like have them parsed out nicely into the little table that you see here because they were just flattened into that one other catalog numbers file. Well, Darwin Core, not that one. Darwin Core has what's called an extension for specifically other identifiers. And so when you do a Darwin Core download, let me bring up that one that I just did. You'll also see a new file in here called identifiers. And apparently there are no other catalog numbers related to these records, but if there were, then you would see each of them listed in this file. So then if I had downloaded, for example, this record, I would see these listed on different lines in that file. Again, maybe not super useful for an everyday user, but this is really important for when you're sharing data, especially with like GBIF or iDigBio. This makes those other identifiers more searchable and they're parsed out into different fields so that you could even order them differently, display them differently, and it will be important for really realizing that extended specimen concept. Okay, so those are the generic new features that we were able to add in this new release. Actually, quite a bit of change, and we're excited to share them with you and have you guys working with them. So as you're working with them, if you have any questions, you have any feedback, please email us, help@symbiota.org. You all have our email address, but we're eager to hear what things just like don't click, which things you think are awesome, which things I think that just need a little bit of changes. And then, of course, if you run into any like major errors or bugs, we want to hear about this as soon as possible. All right, so it looks like we have ample time for questions. I'm also happy to demo anything that people want to learn more about. And I'm going to run through the chat to make sure there weren't any questions. Yeah, Frank asked, can we change the categories of the relationships? Yes, absolutely. So in that linked resources tab, if you've ever made a linked association, there's like a little drop-down menu that lists all the different types of relationships that you can build. That list of types of relationships you can build is dependent on just another table in the database. So that can be changed per Symbiota portal. It's not like hard-coded in. So if you have any like, hey, we're never going to have blood or fecal sub-samples in our records because we deal with lichens, then we can remove those from your database. Questions, thoughts? Bob asks, will the new media type, audio, and eventually video be able to be part of the taxon profile pages? Yes, those are fully incorporated. Anywhere you could previously see an image, you will now be able to see an audio file. Mary asks, does one still have to tab through a new taxon entry to link names to their parents? Yeah, that's still best practice. So what Mary's referring to is like when you just copy and paste values into a form and you just hit enter immediately, sometimes the page doesn't have the time to run kind of the automated scripts that link that name to other things or to really finalize all the checks on that field. So if you copy paste a taxon name into the taxon editor, it's always best practice to just hit tab and get out of that field so that it has the chance to run those little scripts. Christina says, I didn't see the cultivar and trade name fields in the new tax form. Can you show that again? Oh, you're right, Christina. I showed you the changes to the form, but not cultivar and trade name. All right, so again, I'm going to the taxon editor or adder. And you'll be able to see them if you select cultivar from the taxon rank field. Then you have the ability to add a cultivar epithet and or a trade name. So if I just want to put something here, let's say I'm doing this, and the cultivar epithet is baby's breath, and the trade name is my favorite. You'll see that the auto formatting will format it according to best practices for cultivars and trade names, which puts the cultivar in single quotes, and then the trade name is in all caps. Great, good to hear that, Christina. Christina says that's how they format too.
Katie,
It's nice. Yeah,
I was going to ask a question if that's okay.
go for it.
So if you mentioned this when you're going over the other identifiers or other catalog numbers, I might have missed it, but you said that those export now in a new extension file called identifiers, but they still also get exported in other catalog numbers, correct? So they're in both places.
Yes. I
Okay.
think they still are in other catalog numbers. I'll have to double check, but pretty sure.
Katie, can I ask a question?
Go for it, Robin.
I haven't tested it yet. Not that I'm afraid to, but in the past, when I would copy that giant 950 plus taxonomic list of Eastern Seaboard names, and I would not be able to page through the query results, do you think that's still a problem with the new version?
I would imagine that's still a problem because I don't think we've made any changes to how long the query length can be.
Okay. It's not, yeah, I work around it. I just was wondering if it's, still an issue.
Good question, and sorry that's still an issue. That's a really long taxon.
I know. Thanks.
Megan asks, can cultivar names and trade names be added into the occurrence records or only when you're adding in a taxon to the thesaurus? So just like in your everyday editing, you can put any name you want into the scientific name field. It's just not going to automatically index to the taxonomic thesaurus, or AKA connect to the taxonomic thesaurus, because that name isn't in that thesaurus. So yes, you could enter it. You would probably need to format it the way you want it to appear at that time because it doesn't have those auto formatting things because it's not in the thesaurus. Yeah, so you could transcribe them and then send us a message saying, hey, can you add this to the thesaurus? And then we can do that. Megan says, might be nice to have an extra field. True, but none of the like pieces of the scientific name currently have their own field. It's all just like that one scientific name.
I'll unmute because it's probably easier. That makes sense. I'm just thinking of it because say we had like a trade name or a cultivar name, which I know I've come across some of them in our Violaceae collection, and it like that information might be useful. So we've been kind of populating it, I think, in the occurrence remarks or notes field. But I feel like it would cause a problem if someone was like searching for it, if it's not in the taxonomic thesaurus, right?
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Good to know. Thanks.
Yeah, good question. It like you have the ability to put cultivars and trade names, but they still have to be in the thesaurus before they're nicely searchable. I mean, there is a level in the public search forum where it will try to do a text search too. So like you're not completely out of luck if you do a search for the species. Like you probably will still see those cultivar names. But if you did like a family level search, like no, you're out of luck. Violaceae, you would not find those particular cultivars in your download. Other questions or demos needed? Well, if there are no more questions, then I think Mary actually had a question that she wanted to pass to the Symbiota group. Mary, do you still want to ask that?
Yeah, please. Oh yeah, I have got my audio on.
Yeah.
On the profile page, there's on the other resources, there's links to EOL pages. How many people actually use those? I was looking at it this morning because I was trying to explain what they do. And I've always regarded them as rather useless because generally for plants, there's not a lot of information there. And I work with plants mostly. I mean, today I came across one named Bacopa monnieri, if anybody's interested. It tells me it's used for 2 viruses, as far as I could make out. It's a sort of subset of a Neobacopa. But basically what I'm saying is horribly complicated and it was of no use whatsoever.
Sorry, Mary, I'm trying to get to that page.
BACOPA.
Well, I'm just trying to get to a general page, but that works too. So if I go to, whoops, that doesn't exist.
It was Monnieri, MONN,
okay,
which I looked at.
If you look at the taxon profile page in resources,
I don't know why I'm getting 2 copies of it, but
yeah, some taxon profile pages have the Encyclopedia of Life link auto-populated. This is not necessarily in all portals, but I think Mary is asking for those of you who have seen this Encyclopedia of Life link, is it helpful to you? Do you use it? Is that what you're asking, Mary?
yes, because I mean, I don't, but some people may say, look, it's very useful. For instance, it might be much more useful for animals than it is for plants. I don't know.
So does anyone use those links? Again, those can be like changed per portal. So it's not like if I say I don't use them, then they'll be removed from all Symbiota portals everywhere. But that's just kind of a community question.
Yeah, and I didn't know whether they were portal or Symbiota or
right. I mean, you can't tell by just looking at them. So any thoughts? Does anyone use them? Does anyone not use them?
were there any people that didn't know they existed?
That's probably also true.
I think they don't hurt. I mean, it's actually quite useful to have several different resources, I think. So, I mean, and if there's no description of the species, then it might help to have them there. So then people can look up things in other resources.
I found Wikipedia is actually more likely to have something. It won't be, some of the Wikipedia descriptions are detailed, some of them are very undetailed. But for the groups I've looked at, EOL is very often simply all the nomenclatural things, but nothing else. if that.
It really depends on the organism, so.
That's what I'm saying. But I would, if somebody says, yeah, it's really valuable for my field, it'd be really interesting to know which organisms that's true for.
I think it's probably more important too for the public facing, for people who aren't familiar with like the back end of Symbiota and maybe are just looking up records, then they can find different resources for more information. And I'm only saying that because I know our students use that work in the herbarium when they're doing we have them do a taxon report. And so they'll use those resources as references for information they're getting.
Okay. I mean, that's the sort of thing I would be interested to know, because I'd say the times that I was looking for additional information usually was when I was having to deal with insects or animals in general. And I go to Wikipedia, I'll admit it. And I will credit it when I put them into one of the portals I manage. But your students do find them useful. That's interesting.
Yeah, and I would assume like we have master gardeners and different volunteers that kind of go on and poke around the portal, and if they're looking for maybe some more information on a species, they might. I would assume, I don't know for sure, but I would assume that they're probably clicking on the taxon page, pulling up that, and then maybe going to those reference sites.
Yeah, and that's in North America too, right?
Oh, yes, yeah, North America.
The issue
Well, we
might
have
be,
much
Mary,
better
that
resources in North America than anywhere else that I know of.
yeah, you're also
Okay.
dealing with some pretty small, not small, but like lesser studied flora.
Right.
Good question. Any other random community questions, thoughts people are thinking about, or Symbiota 3.2 questions? For Bryophyte and Lichen portal users, we're hoping to get your portals updated early this week. So that's coming soon.
Well, thanks for letting me know then.
Don't worry, we'd email you first.
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for your time, everyone. Looking forward to hearing your feedback about the new 3.2 changes. And you can upload all your great prairie dog barks and cricket chirps and what have you.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.